Alright guys, looks like we have a little Kubota tractor here. Looks like we have a little 2-cylinder diesel. I got some stuff going on it. So one good thing is they covered this exhaust, keep all the water out. So I'm happy about that. It does have a little flapper on it. Let's see what the oil looks like on this thing. Yep, it's got oil. About halfway. So that's good. I think he said it ran when it was parked here. So we'll see. I don't have a key for it. So I'll have to see if I can get a key to work. Seems like the levers move. Let's see how many hours it has. 1,302 hours. Not too bad. So it does come with this little bush hog as well. It's missing the top link, but it does have a overrunning clutch. Whenever you come to a stop, the momentum of the blades won't push the machine forward, so that's pretty nice to have. Looks like the rear tires are holding air, but the front tires are completely flat. We'll see if those take any air. Looks like we have a 2-speed transmission, 1 to 4 gears here, and then we have a couple other gears here as well. Our brakes do work. I think this is the throttle, foot throttle as well. Looks like we got a couple blackberries growing on inside the hood there too. As far as the condition of it, it doesn't look that bad. It's definitely beaten up from sitting out here, but I think the bones of it are pretty good. The steering wheel looks pretty shot. Looks like we got a nice wasp nest under here. We got these red wasps flying around. Take a look at this coolant. Let's see what we got in here. And we don't have any coolant. That's not really a good sign. Let's take a quick look at this air filter. It's a little dirty. We'll blow that out with some compressed air. That's not too bad, but I'll definitely get a new one for that. So I'm not exactly sure about the date code on this battery. I think it says 1998 though. It's kind of hard to tell. And that's about right with what the guy said about how long it's been sitting. Let's take a look and see if we got any diesel in the tank. Looks like there's some water and sand right there. Ooh, that tank does not look good at all. It is completely rusty. Yeah, it's not that good of a sign. So I am kind of curious to see what this fuel filter looks like. If I can actually get it off. Nope, that is stuck. So I'm kind of limited on the number of tools I got here, but I'm just gonna try and see. Yeah, it's not gonna work. Well, I really wanted to try and get this thing running so I can drive it up on the trailer. However, with that fuel tank like it is, I don't want to send any of that rust into the injection pump, and there's no telling what's inside of that filter, so I don't really want to ruin any of that. I do want to at least see if it will pop off, so let's get a little bit of coolant in it and just see if this thing will turn over. All right, let's get a little water in this for now. I hope we don't have a cracked block somewhere on this, because that is taking a lot of coolant. Alright, so I was able to find a key. All this is in Japanese, so I can't read it, but we have 4 positions. The first one is off, then we have on, and some other one. So it's probably for like the headlights. This is our shut-off lever, and it is stuck. So if I need to shut it off, I'll have to push this lever, which it is kind of tight, but it does work. Let's take this valve cover cap off and just look at what it looks like underneath that. Well, it doesn't look bad. There's a little tiny bit of surface rust, but nothing major. All right, so I got a little jump back here. Let's see if we can get this thing to just spin over. All right, we got lights on the dash here, that's good. Let's see if it turns over. It spins over nice. Doesn't seem like it has much compression though. Alright, let's see if this thing will fire up. I wanted to. Yeah, it wants to. It really probably just needs some diesel in it though. You know, I think I'm gonna just throw some diesel in this tank. We have a filter down here, so cross our fingers. Hopefully nothing gets in the injection pump. But in order to get on the trailer, I think this is what we're gonna have to do. Whoa. Well, we got a problem. Well, I guess this is why all the fuel leaked out. Alright, problem solved. Alright, let's give this another shot. It wants to go, but this fuel line's stopping it. It's wanting to shoot the fuel back out. Probably just really low on compression. It's wanting to.
Oh God, what's smoking over there, the starter? Oh no, it's diesel pouring out the exhaust.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so close. It's right there at it. Give it a little bit more glow. We'll try it again. Oh, it's running. Oh, it was at full throttle. It should have been going.
It didn't get my fuel.
Well, it started up, but it's not getting enough fuel. All right, let's go ahead and replace this fuel line. I was able to shut the fuel off at the tank. Let's see if we can get this undone. There we go. Let's bleed some air out of here. go. Let's go ahead and crack these injectors, make sure we're actually getting fuel up here. Alright, let's spin it over, see if we get any fuel. Oh yeah, we're getting good fuel out of there. So this thing should crank up. I do think it's pretty low on compression though. The way this engine spins over pretty smoothly. It's not much resistance, so we're probably fighting low compression right now. All right, let's give it a little bit of glow. Give it a shot. It started up. Awesome. Let's get some air in these tires, get some of these weeds out, and see if we can drive this thing up on the trailer. All right, well this thing is a runner. Let's get a little bit of air in these tires. They're pretty dry rotted, so I'm not having too high hopes, but let's see if it takes some air. Oh yeah, they're taking air. Sweet. we got it on here. It's gonna barely fit. Maybe I can take this wheel off. If I can do that, it should fit. All right, we are all loaded up. Got a couple other implements with it. Let's head on out of here. Hey guys, welcome back. So this is a Kubota L1500. I'm not sure exactly what year it is, but it's probably like an 80s model, somewhere around there. So we just picked this thing up out of a field where it was sitting for probably about 20 years or so. During those years, it just sat where all the weeds grew over it. You can see we still got some remnants of all these wild blackberry bushes. So this is powered by a little Kubota twin-cylinder diesel engine. I'm not sure exactly the horsepower on these, but it's probably maybe around 10 to 20 horsepower. So we were able to get this thing running and get it home here. However, there's a lot of issues with this thing. You can see that these ball joints are just really loose. The radiator leaks. We just filled that thing up and we got a couple leaks. We got one here. It was also leaking out the bottom somewhere as well. Overall, the condition on this isn't horrible. We still have all our gauges. I was able to get a key to work in it. However, some of these body panels are a little beat up, so maybe I can straighten those out. I did get a nice brush mower with it, and I also got some other implements as well. I got this little dethatcher or whatever you want to call this thing, some kind of tine plow. But I also got this category 1 quick hitch, so that thing is pretty nice. We'll go ahead and get that on the machine later. This bush hog looks a little beat up. You can see where water has sat on it, and it's made a lot of pinholes. It's just kind of flaking, but I believe the thing works and turns. It does have this new overrunning clutch on it. Those are pretty nice to have. On my 8-inch tractor, whenever you're mowing and you're like going down a hill and you try and come to a stop, the momentum of the blades will keep pushing you forward. Looks like we have a little toolbox on the back here. Got a couple wrenches. Oh, there's some keys. That might be the key right there for it. There's a couple keys in here, so that might be the keys. Our 3-point hitch seems to work decently. However, when I was using it, I did notice kind of a whining sound, so I think it's pretty low on fluid. Either that or something else is going on with it. So I had to install a new fuel line on there. The other one was cracked and spraying fuel everywhere. Once we got that replaced, it did seem to fire up and it actually runs pretty decent. This diesel tank had a lot of rust down in it, so I'd like to go ahead and get that taken off and get that all cleaned out. So unfortunately, our little RPM gauge is broken off. It used to go in this right here, and that spun with the engine in order to spin our little tachometer up here. So maybe I can find a new cable for that. I'm not sure just yet, but we'll check and see. Another thing I just noticed is through these little bolt holes, I think these are where you can mount a front end loader on this. It looks like coolant, maybe oil coming out of those. Hopefully we don't have any issues. I know the clutch just spins around in there, but if we have a bad rear main seal, it could potentially fill those up with oil if the bolts go all the way through. We obviously are going to need a new battery and get everything else fixed up. But before I do anything, I would like to give this thing a bath. This thing is filthy. There is so much grease and grime all over this thing. We have a lot of this rope wrapped around this axle. This is something you never want to have because it will completely destroy the axle seal. So I'll make sure to get all that out. You can see there's already a lot of grease around it and oil, so it might have already destroyed the seal on that. Well, all right, that cleaned up pretty nice. However, it did show some of the flaws on this machine. So now that we got all the junk off this, we can see that there is a pretty good bit of pitting on this metal here. Also, when I looked up under this, the blade was moving around a lot. If I move up on this, the whole thing moves around a good bit. You can see it up here as well. So either the bolt's just not tightened enough, or that spline shaft is pretty wore out. I also noticed that these chains are too loose, and these arms have been rubbing on this wheel pretty good. It's definitely taken some chunks out of it. This seat is definitely kind of just thrown together. It's really falling apart, and you can see we have a ton of ants still in it, so it's barely being held on. So I have to get a new seat for this as well. One other thing I noticed on this seal where the steering arm goes in, it was actually leaking water out of there. I think that's a pretty common issue with these, that the steering box gets filled up with water through right here, and it ends up rusting the gears and kind of seizing everything up. I did go ahead and order a new tachometer cable, but before we do that, let's go ahead and get this fuel tank taken off so we can get it cleaned out. All right, let's go ahead and get this fuel filter off. That way we can go ahead and start draining some of the fuel. Not too bad, but there is a little bit of rust and sediment in there. Oh yeah, got all that rust that was in there. There's a pretty good bit in there. The filter itself doesn't look too bad. There's a pretty good bit hidden down in there. By the way, this Wix filter, it's a pretty solid looking filter here. So I think we're gonna have to take this dash off in order to get to the bolts. So this right here is our decompression lever. It goes onto the top of our valves here, and I believe when you pull it, it opens up your exhaust valve. That way it could either shut the machine off, or another thing, if you hold this out and turn the starter, it will allow the engine to spin up faster, and then when you release it, it will give it kind of like a boost to start. That might be useful in cold weather, but either way, this thing is really kind of seized up. So let's see if we can free this cable up. There we go. Much better. All right, so it looks like we've got to take the steering wheel off. Let's see what's under this fuse panel. Wow, it looks like they just put wires instead of fuses. Hey buddy, what are you doing under here? What are you doing under there? Hey buddy. Alright, so we got the diesel tank off, and now looking a little closer, it looks like there might be a small crack here And also there is a chip right here on this seal, so that could be letting water in, along with this and along with this seal here. It also looks like there might be a crack right in here as well, and it looks like it might follow all the way down. I'll have to clean that off a little bit better, but I'm pretty sure there's a crack there. And you can see there's a pretty large gap in here. I know there's a gasket in here as well, but that looks like a pretty big gap. So I might need a new assembly here. I think they have aftermarket ones on eBay for around 150 bucks or so, but I want to make sure this one's bad before I go buying a new one. Oh yeah, that doesn't look good. You can see there's a lot of rusting in there, a lot of rust on that shaft, and you can see there's a ton of water down in there as well. And yes, this is an obvious crack. There's a crack here as well, and I'm pretty sure that goes all the way down. So I might need a new steering box. Look at all that water. So now we can get a good look down here at our clutch and throw-out bearing, and you can see there's a lot of moisture in there, most likely coming from our steering gearbox, which also has gear oil in it, so it looks like all the gear oil leaked in along with the water. Alright, so we got that all nice and cleaned out. It's also a good time to go ahead and grease that throw-out bearing, so let's do that. That should be good. That thing was pretty bone dry in there. Here's our ball bearings, and that's one of the common problems with these. You can see the bearing is just completely disintegrated in there. Well, I was gonna try and reuse as much of these parts as I can. The pitman arm I can reuse, the shaft maybe I can reuse. However, this housing is definitely cracked through here, here, and there's also a crack that goes right here, and it actually goes all the way through the bottom of this casing. It's really hard to see in camera, but it might be able to pick it up right there. and that's why all this water and gear oil was leaking into the transmission where the clutch is. So it looks like I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and just order a whole new steering assembly. If I really wanted to reuse this stuff, I probably could braze it together, but by the time I spend in all that, it's probably just better to go ahead and buy a new assembly. Hey buddy. Hey buddy. You sleeping? You sleeping under there? Buddy. Buddy. Alright, so while we're waiting on our new steering arm to come in, let's see if I can go ahead and get this tank cleaned out. Oh yeah, there is a ton of rust down in that hole. I'm guessing this was supposed to be some sort of sight gauge, but looks like somebody replaced it with just a regular fuel line. Alright, so I'm going to try and get all the residual fuel out of here before I go pressure washing this. Alright, well that's a lot better, but it's still not perfect. So I'm going to dump some bolts and a little bit of muriatic acid in it, and hopefully that'll get this thing looking a lot better. If you do this to your tank, be very careful with this stuff. It's basically hydrochloric acid, and it will burn your eyes, your lungs, and do some major harm to you. You can already see that acid starting to work. So now with this leftover muriatic acid, I'll take some baking soda or lime, mix it in here, and that will neutralize it. That way you can dispose of it properly. All right, well I will say that is 100 times better. That is pretty clean. So now what you want to do is get some baking soda and put it in there, and that will completely neutralize all the acid. Then you want to rinse it out fully and get some fogging oil or diesel and fill it up. That way it doesn't flash rust. Alright, so you can see that this tie rod is completely shot, and it just moves around in there. So I ended up picking up a new tie rod. However, this is the wrong side. It's the left hand thread one. This is the right hand. So the tie rod itself is still fine. It's just these threads are stripped. So let's see if I can rethread those. So I ended up tapping it to a 3/8 and got a new nut here. And that fits perfect there. So I think we should be good on that. So I just noticed that this wheel bearing is pretty loose. So let's go ahead and take this cover off and see what's going on. Yeah, you can see that is super loose there. So it looks like I might be able to just get by with tightening this nut up. It looks like somebody put a nail through here. Yep, that is definitely a nail. This most likely belonged to a farmer at one point in time. Let's see if we can just tighten this. Yeah, see, that's super loose, so we'll just tighten it up a little bit. Yeah, that's still kind of loose. So yeah, it's looking like the bearing's bad. It's really a poor design in my opinion. Kubota really should have used a tapered roller bearing like you would see in a trailer axle or pretty much any other vehicle. This is just a single roller bearing that's not tapered, and they just don't have the side load like a taper roller bearing would have. Let's see what this oil filter looks like. Well, honestly, it doesn't look all that bad. It's definitely got a little bit of sludge down at the bottom, but I don't see any metal flakes or shavings in it, so that's good. There's definitely a bunch of thick sludge in there from, I guess, where it was sitting all those years. Alright, so I got my new steering assembly in, and it actually looks pretty good. I'm quite surprised. The quality looks pretty decent. It actually seems to be a lot better because up here it actually has a seal going around the stem here, and the original one just had like a rubber bushing in here and it didn't seal the water, and that's the main issue with the factory steering stems is they let water down here into the gearbox. That water will freeze and it will crack and rust the gears out. So I'm pretty happy to see the good quality on this. I'm not exactly sure what this wire is for, so if you guys know, please let me know in the comments. So if you look at the difference between the aftermarket and the factory, you can see the factory housing is a lot thinner than the aftermarket. So these bolts aren't long enough with the washer on them. So I just took the washer off and I'm going to use some Loctite on them. That will make up for the difference. Alright, let's make sure this thing has some fluid in it. And that looks bone dry, so let's get that filled up. This is a transfer case fluid. I'm actually going to flush this out because I saw some metal particles in there. And I'll put some gear oil in it. Alright, let's go ahead and get the steering wheel set. So the way you want to set this for your pitman arm is you want to spin this, count the number of turns, and then divide that directly in the middle and have your wheels completely straight. So let's take this all the way to one extreme. So we'll count it right here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4.5, 4 1/4. So we're going to take it all the way back. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so about 4 1/4. So in between them is right here. So we're going to take this 2 turns. So 1, 2. Now we can go ahead and get our pitman arm installed. All right, so now we want to hook it to our tie rod. Make sure the wheels are completely straight, and then we'll go ahead and connect it to our splines here. All right, that steering is so much tighter now, especially when I get that bearing in. It's going to be even better. Before, the steering was all over the place, and now that's super tight. All right, let's get a little bit of grease on these. Pushing a bunch of water out of there. This thing doesn't look like it was ever greased. Alright, so I went ahead and picked up a new tachometer cable. This old one is definitely pretty crusty. Well, looks like this one's not going to fit. So everything about these cables are the same except for these 2 ends. This factory one has the threads on the outside, and the aftermarket has the threads on the inside. So I'm thinking maybe if I cut these off, I can maybe weld this one onto this cable and make it work that way. Alright, well, it all seems to work. It's on there, but this got a little bit hot, so I'm just going to put a little bit of epoxy on it. So I'm going to take this cloth material and I'm just going to soak it in some epoxy and wrap it around it. Just take this and soak it in there. This works really good for patching up pretty much anything. Alright, I'll let that dry. It's like some permanent tape. Alright, that end fits good. Hey buddy, what are you doing there? You want to sting me? Yeah? Alright, so these glow plug wires are literally on their last leg. Well, yeah, there it goes. So let's go ahead and see if we can make up some new ones. This one's split right here as well, so that's about to go. Our second wire here. All right, got both those finished up. So as I was looking at all these wires, I noticed that there's either a big burn spot here or something chewed up the wires. Let's get these cut out and see what's going on. It looks like they just kind of melted together, so it's probably from the reason why they took them fuses out what caused all that. Yeah, so you can definitely tell that wire was melted right there. So this thing was missing the horn button. I believe this is the power wire to it. So I made this little switch here to go through this little hole in the dash. I believe that's where the horn goes through. So to keep water from getting down in the switch, I just cut a little piece off of a glove finger here, and I'm gonna see if this is gonna work. Alright, that should keep the water out of that. Alright, let's see if this RPM cable fits. Oh yeah, perfect. steering wheel installed. Cap. Oh yeah, that is so much tighter than before. Well, you guys aren't gonna believe this. I literally just put this fuel line on here about a day or two ago. I never connected it, and look what is already inside of it. Little dirt dauber worms all moving around inside there. Probably fill this filter up as well. Yep, of course. These guys are so annoying. Alright, get all that cleaned out. Let's go ahead and get this fuel line replaced as well. Genuine fuel filter. Let's go ahead and fill this line up. Alright, so this is your throttle lever right here. And when you engage it, it engages full throttle fine. However, when you go to release it, the arm stays engaged at full throttle. And it's supposed to have a spring to pull it back. So it basically just sticks, like there's no spring. I believe there's supposed to be a spring under this injection pump housing here. So let's take that off and see what's going on. I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect this arm first. Doesn't really look too good in there. There's a lot of oily buildup. But you can see our spring is in there. Maybe it's just kind of dirty in there, so it needs to be freed up. It's definitely starting to free up a little bit now. Oh, look, it's actually even springing back now. So I think this is actually idle right here, and this is shut off. So it seems to be working okay now. Let's hook this lever back up and see if it works. So yeah, it's working good now. And if I want to shut it off, what I do is you reach under here and you just pull up, and that's your shut off. Alright, let's get our new filter installed. This filter was pretty hard to find. They don't make them anymore. Most of these machines have a screw-on filter with a different housing here. Let's get some oil in here. We are right on the money there. Some nasty looking stuff there. Alright, well I'm pretty sure there's a filter behind this cap here. Fluid looks pretty clean. I think I need a bigger bucket. This filter doesn't look the best though. Looks like it has some metal shavings in it for sure. There's a little bit of crud coming out of there. Looks like a little bit of metal glitter. About the same with this side as well, but overall not too bad. Alright, we got one more drain here. Yeah, that was pretty tight. I thought only 5 gallons of fluid go in this transmission, but I've emptied probably like 7 gallons, so it might have been overfilled. So this filter housing is actually a lot worse than I thought. It's pretty clogged up. If I stick a light through it, I mean, you can't see any light come through except for a little bit right here. And the 3-point did whine when you used it, so cleaning this might solve that. Alright, well I got the filter cleaned out and now you can actually see light through it. It's not perfect, but it's definitely a whole lot better than what it was. Let's get this filter reinstalled. Alright, let's get this battery tray cleaned off a little bit. All this is going to be covered up by a battery, so it doesn't have to look pretty. Alright, so while that's paint's drying, let's go ahead and get the correct bolts on this 3-point bracket. And as you can see, this link here barely fits down in there. You really got to kind of like wiggle it down in there to fit. So it looks like some of these bolt holes were re-threaded, and yeah, the fit's not that great. See, this one actually goes in at an angle. They didn't even tap that straight. Seems like this one is probably the best one out of all of them. So I might have to make a plate to use some of these bolts because I really just don't trust these. Let's see how the threads are on these guys. Alright, so I just noticed something, that these brackets are actually supposed to be down here. All those bolts line up perfectly. They had them up here. Another thing is that they use standard bolts in metric threads. Yeah, that's why these are all kind of messed up. These, I went ahead and ran a tap through them, so these are all nice. I got some bolts for those. They are a hair long, so I might have to use some washers. So these bolt hole spacings are actually just a hair wider. So now this thing actually fits in here like it's supposed to. Alright, let's get this piece of rubber installed under the battery. Alright, so let's go ahead and fix the 3-point arms here. You can see where the tire has been rubbing really bad on it, and it's been taking big chunks out of the lugs of the tire. So the way we're going to do that is adjusting these chains. These chains keep it from moving side to side. Pretty much we just need to tighten these chains up. Alright, so yeah, I think that's a whole lot better. Got some nice chains on it. I was looking at this overrunning clutch, and it has these 2 threaded holes on each side. And I'm pretty sure that's for a grease zerk. That way you can grease the inside of this. So let's put some zerks on that. Go ahead and get some grease on it. See if we can bend some of this stuff back a little bit. Alright, well it's not perfect, but I guess it's better than what it was. Alright, let's see if we can straighten this thing up. So this thing is pretty bent up. Let's go ahead and get rid of this goofy seat. There's a new seat. Let's pull this weight bar off. Alright, let's see if we can bend this back here. That actually kind of worked. So the front end of this tractor is very light with that bush hog on the back. So I'm gonna try and fit these weights on here. Well, alright guys, I think we are ready to test this thing out. There's still a lot more to do on this machine, but for now, let's go ahead and cut some grass with it. All right, guys, so this thing is working pretty good. It seems to have some really good pulling power with the high and low gearing right here, and then all your other gears. It will easily pull whatever I have behind it. And that's pretty remarkable for this being a little 2-cylinder engine on here. So I believe it does have a little bit of blow by, as I did see some smoke coming out of this tube right here. That's usually an indication of compression getting past the rings. So I might do a future video on just refreshing this engine, maybe getting some pistons, rings, and cylinder sleeves for it. But other than that, everything works good. The 3-point hitch works great. PTO. I'm really loving this quick attach right here because I can just simply swap between implements pretty quickly with that. Seems like all the gauges are working good. The little horn works. So that button worked good. I was able to get an original key for it. So in my next upcoming video, I'm planning on having the final video on the mini excavator. That thing is almost done, so be on the lookout for that video. But until then, I always appreciate you guys hanging out with me and resurrecting this old Kubota L1500, and I will see you guys on the next video. So y'all take care. Later.